Good morning, good people of planet Earth. This is Consciousness Rising here. It is, I never know what date it is. It's the 12th.
November.
It's November. I think it's the 12th or it's Friday the 12th. Anyway, that aside, welcome Natasha. You've joined us again today for the second part of our beautiful series about words and the sovereignty of understanding what is actually coming out of our mouths and why. So I just want to quickly say, before we start, Tash, if it's all right with you, a couple of things. Just Gabby Spiritual from Truth Pills came on and asked about benefits in terms of if you stop paying things. We talked about stopping paying council tax. She asked, does it get taken out of your benefits? The answer to that is yes. But they're not allowed to take very much out at a time because you have to be able to have enough to live off and feed your children, etc. But what I suggest, if that is your situation, is just come out of what you can come out of for the moment. Do what you can to step out within reason.
And it's likely that the council tax would do that.
Yeah, that is just
so you could always maybe try water or gas or electric.
Yeah,
it's the council tax that will take it out of your
and they are
credit.
buggers, aren't they? With,
they will take. They'll find any way.
They'll find a way.
But we will do a talk on that because there are lots of different notice stages that we can write to these people anyway.
And there's all the data stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, there's all sorts of processes that we can go through.
They sell our data, don't they?
Yeah.
So we can, they do lots of illegal things behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So we can, we'll do one on that, won't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, Natasha, what have you got for us today?
Oh, what have we got today? So I thought I'd just show some books, which are quite handy when you're working with words. So this is a really good one. Oops, that one's on the floor. So that's the Dictionary of Word Origins. And then you've got the English etymology. Mm-hmm. And even when you just turn it on the back and you read this just made me laugh. So assassin. So assassin comes from the Arabic for hashish eater. Now, did anyone know that?
No.
And then another interesting one, it was nice meant foolish or stupid in the 13th century and coy or shy in the 15th century. So it's just an interesting book.
So words can change their meaning over time?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So I've been an assassin in the past.
Have you?
Yes.
Were you eating hashish?
I've had assassin cookies before now. Yeah, and assassin brownies. So there we are.
And there's also this book, which is called Word Magic, The Powers and Occult Definition of Words.
That looks good.
So that's a good one. And some common law books, which if I just quickly hold up and you can screenshot or whatever. So the Common Law Handbook. So they say you've broken the law. And then Common Law Handbook.
Read, people.
And a Common Law Training Manual. And you can also get one which is the same as this, the same people who've created it, which is called Meet Your Strawman. But I've lost that one, can't find it.
Somewhere in your house.
Somewhere in my house. So there's some interesting books.
And I have got some PDFs, which I will post as links for you guys as well on common law. So anyway, that's a bit of a starter with reading material, isn't it?
Okay, so words. So with words, we need to look beyond the surface and we need to dissect the layers of the words and study various different things about words. So those two dictionaries I showed you are very good because one of them looks at the origin and the other one looks at how the words have changed over the years.
So the etymology is the origin, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's where the words have come from.
Where the words have come from. And the other thing you need to look at is rearranging letters as well. So anagrams, the art of anagrams, which is quite an interesting one. And then we need the homophones, which are words that are pronounced the same way, yet they're spelt differently and they have different meanings. So an example of that is air, as in the air that we breathe, and air
as in the air to the throne.
Yeah, so that's an example of how words can have different meanings. They can phonetically sound the same.
Yeah.
And then once you've dissected these words, you can find the true meaning and also how they're connected.
Yeah.
Because quite often you'll look at the meaning of one word and there'll be a word in there which you then look at, which then carries on the connection to things. So I thought we'd use an example. So I've gone with baptism. Mm-hmm. So the word baptism. I'm baptimist. I can't say it now. Baptism is a ceremonial immersion in water as a initiation, rite or sacrament of the Christian church. So that's it put simply. So when you look at that, the word that sort of comes up as quite interesting is the word rite. So R-I-T-E. So a rite is a formal or a ceremonial act customary in religious or other solemn use. Now, it's important to know that the word rite has a very strong connection to the word ritual. It's just interesting to remember
Same
that
root,
one.
the R-I-T.
Yeah. And rites are often used to initiate somebody or to become a member of a group or a secret society.
A secret society.
So an example being the Jesuits or the Freemasons is like a good example.
Yeah.
So phonetically, when we say the word rite, R-I-T-E, it sounds phonetically the same as the word right, W-R-I-T-E.
As in, this is correct, this is right.
And writing. So if you look at just the basic term of the word write, it obviously just means to write or trace a symbol, form characters, and you can do this with pen or paper, scribe, all these various ways of doing it. So that's so basically, phonetically they're the same. They have different meanings and different spellings. So words are made of letters, and letters are sigils. Do we know what a sigil is?
A sigil.
A sigil. S-I-G-I-L-S.
No, but it's reminding me of the word signal.
So a sigil is an inscribed or painted symbol considered to have magical powers. So basically, that's what letters are made up of. So when we're forming words and letters, it's called spelling, and it's called spelling for a reason, because we're actually playing with magic spells.
Yeah, we're spell casting.
Yeah, when you spell or write. And it's important to remember that that can be used in a good and a bad way.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily, because it's like spell and spelling doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. It can be used in a good way. So that is a little bit of an example of how you can decipher a word and find their sort of deeper meanings.
Get to the etymology, the root of it, where it came from.
Yep.
And also, how it's being used and how that meaning might have changed over the years.
Yes, yeah, and just how words do have, words that sound the same can have different meanings, and then also you can, break them down, and there's just various different ways to break them down. It's not, how can we put it, just because what I'm saying and what I've researched doesn't mean that that's necessarily
set in stone.
Set in stone. That is just a way of breaking down and looking into words and seeing how they're used, basically. So we were talking the other day, weren't we, about the when you're born. So I thought we'd go into a little bit more.
Are we not doing? We're not doing horses.
I've got that right for the end.
Oh,
that little horse.
Because I did actually look at the words around marriage.
Yeah,
so.
yes.
Okay,
no,
I've
got
my
horsey
do that.
Definitely going to do that one. I thought I'd finish with that one. So when you're a fetus, you live in the womb for 9 months, and you are in effect living in water.
Yes.
You're in the amniotic fluid. And you're born from your mother's vessel, ship, body, the mothership.
Well, the womb is the vessel, isn't it? Okay.
And you're born through the birth canal, and then of course you've got the birth canal of a shipping, so it's spelt differently, but it's the same. So you have a birth canal, which is a female birthing canal, and then you have a birth canal, which is an artificial waterway that's used by the captain of a ship to birth a vessel.
To dock it.
To dock it, to protect it, to load it, to unload it. So it's basically used
It's
in that way.
birthed when it's...
Yeah.
Okay.
So the terminology there is the same. So the shipping and the mother. And then, of course, when you birth the baby, you do birth through the hips, and hips is an anagram of the word ship.
Ugh. So we are effectively just...
A vessel.
Birthing vessels.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I talk about the wedding ceremonies, all that kind of comes into it as
ties
well.
in, does it? Oh, I love it.
It's all very similar. So, before you're born, generally speaking, you used to go to the hospital. You can have them at home now. And you'll travel through your birth canal. And back in the day, babies were delivered by doctors. Nowadays you get midwives and all sorts, don't you? But traditionally you were delivered by a doctor. So the word doctor sounds very similar to dock ore, which would have been traditionally a docking of ore, as in probably iron ore or I don't know.
Oh, metallic ore.
Yeah, metallic ore. So dock ore, that's what a dock ore is, and that's where the word doctor. So
the word doctor comes from, is a shipping term again.
It's a shipping term again. It's spelt differently, but it's the same sound again.
Yeah.
So a dock ore is a platform. So then, so I break the word dock ore up. So you've got your dock, which we spoke about before, which is your platform to secure and protect a boat or a ship. Now, ore, there's a few different meanings for ore. So the first one is the obvious one, which is a metal-bearing mineral or rock that can be mined for a profit.
An iron ore or whatever.
Which is interesting, isn't it? So it can be mined for a profit.
Yes.
And then, of course, ore phonetically sounds like oar, O-A-R, as in an oar.
Oh, yes.
Which is paddled and used to move and steer a boat.
Yes. Move to propel you along.
Yeah, to move you along. So, that's those two there. And then we can look into, this is where it gets a little bit confusing now. So.
Oh, I love a bit of confusion.
Right.
Go on then.
Let's look at the word maternity ward.
Mm.
Okay, which is where children are born and where they're put. They're put into a maternity ward, aren't they, once they're born in hospitals?
Yes.
So the word ward actually is a prison term, and it's a section of prison in wards, which we also call cells, prison cells. So the definition of a cell is a device for converting chemical energy into electrical energy.
Hence the cells in our body.
Yes, yeah. But also batteries and stuff like that can be a cell.
Okay, so a cell is a form of producing energy.
Yeah, producing energy, basically. So another reason the word or could be used in the word doctor is that the baby is representing the battery used to feed the matrix energy. So basically, the maternity ward is preparing them to become biological batteries.
Ugh.
And it's very similar in the prisons as well, that the prisoners are caged in these prison wards for the same reasons, because it produces
energy. And that would be energy that the darker forces like to feed off in a prison. Fear, anger, depression. I'm assuming just somebody with a lot of problems incarcerated.
Yeah.
They're going to
harvest the energy,
produce a lot of negative energy, which then can be harvested by.
Which just isn't good in general, is it?
No.
It's just not good to have.
So a baby is basically born and then seen immediately, according to this lingo, as a form of something that's going to produce energy.
Yes, and that energy could be money, revenue, isn't it? So actually, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's what the energy they're producing is revenue.
Yes.
So basically, you're going into the hospital. You're trusting the role of the doctor to deliver the baby, and the doctor is turning that baby into the product of a ship to be sold in commerce via the birth certificate, if you like. So, the energy cell, it could be monetary, could be for energy harvesting, I don't know. But the fact that they go into this maternity ward,
Yeah.
and that is considered a prison. Well, think about hospitals in general, all the wards.
I know, you can't get out even if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, I know from recent experience trying to get my father discharged how hard it is when they don't want to
And they're all
let them
called
out.
wards, aren't they? The cardiology ward, everything is a ward. And it is, you check yourself in, don't you? You have your bracelet, you're clocked in.
Yeah.
You're told when you can eat, when you can. So it is a form of incarceration.
Of incarceration, yeah.
Under the guise of, we're doing it for your health.
Well, and also that makes sense of why all the medicine women were killed and burnt as witches, because they delivered all the babies.
Yeah.
And traditionally, the women of the village delivered the babies. The medicine women or the healer, and then they all got burnt at the stake for being witches, and then they brought men in to deliver the babies.
And this
which
indoctrination.
Is the doctor.
Yeah. And this indoctrination of
And you
how
got
it
the
should
word doc in.
be. Yeah.
Ah!
So let's look at hospital.
Oh, yes.
So hospital has a deeper meaning. So it derives from the French word hostel, as in a shelter. Now, the word hostel sounds very similar to the word hostile.
Yes.
Doesn't it? So, and obviously hostile is not friendly, it's not warm, not hospitable. So that's interesting in itself, isn't it? That's where
the similarity of those
the connection
words.
of those words. So
Yeah.
then I looked a little bit deeper, and the word hospital has a very, very strong connection to the secret society called the Knights Hospitaller. So the word hospital and then L-E-R.
Never heard of them.
Well, they're a faction of the Knights Templar.
Heard of them?
And of course, the Knights Templar are the private army for the Vatican.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
And what's the symbol of the Knights of Templar?
The Red Cross.
Yeah. So there we have it. So it's the Red Cross. So basically, this symbol is found on the British flag. It's found inside of hospitals in America and England. And the American Red Cross, the British Red Cross, and the International Committee of the Red Cross.
Yeah, I thought it was a kind of everybody, wherever you are in the world, recognises that Red Cross as being medical.
So we think that's really good, don't we? We think, oh, that means this and the other. But actually, it's symbolism. So the secret societies use these symbols to communicate and to have ownership, I suppose. It's kind of like, it's like a gang thing almost, isn't it? It's like when you have street gangs, it's... they operate like that, and it's their way.
They put their tag up.
Yeah. It's their way of basically.
So the Red Cross is the tag of the gang, the hood, the hospital hood.
Yeah, very, very similar.
But also, just to interject there, about the Knights Templar and the Army of the Vatican, they were the ones that went out and killed all the healers and. Weren't they?
Same lot, yeah.
Because they arrived to introduce Christianity, and they murdered so many people that they claim were witches who were doing the natural healing. So it kind of, it's weird, isn't it? All kind of fits in, yeah.
All fits in together.
It's mad.
Yeah, so that's just a bit interesting. I thought there about the hospital. So obviously the horse ceremony. I've got some notes here.
Nay!
My brain has gone funny. Right, so Parliament introduced a registration of marriages, also deaths and births, all at the same time. And it was the 1st of July in 1837.
Right.
Prior to that, the churches did all this registration and kept a record of what was going on. But of course, once it became a legalised process, you've got registrars involved, and then they got paid, and then you generate revenue. So it started this whole wedding certificate type thing generates revenue as well.
A lot of money.
Yeah, basically. So that's just a sort of that's when wedding certificates and stuff like that were formally introduced. So 1837. So a wedding is a horse breeding ceremony. So back in the day, when the slave masters wanted to breed their slaves...
that's what wedding means? Wedding means...
I'll break down wedding in a minute.
Okay,
or marriage, actually, is the word I've got. So wedding is it's a horse breeding ceremony. So when slave masters wanted to breed their slaves, they turned to animal husbandry. Now, animal husbandry just means someone who takes care of cattle, but actually in this day and age it also means someone who works in a zoo does animal husbandry. So it's somebody who cares for animals. And then gradually through the history, these terms have leaked into the process of the legal contract of marriage, if you like, or partnership. And the whole point of that legal contract, marriage partnership, is for two entities to formally create a child.
So it's all about breeding.
So if you think about it, you never used to be able to have children out of wedlock, did you? It was considered whatever, and it's that same thing. So it's to do with a partnership. You couldn't
be buried in the churchyard.
Yeah.
If you'd had a child out of wedlock, and the child wouldn't be buried.
It was just awful. Where bastard comes from and stuff, wasn't it?
Completely ostracised from your community. Yeah.
So actually the legal side of it is to do with two entities formally creating a child, and of course the word child, not a son or a daughter, a child, which
is a legalese word, isn't it? Child and children.
Yeah, which sort of brings that thing back in. So, and also the husbandry, that word husbandry, of course, the word husband comes out of that, which is used when you get married. So that's your first word where they're using an animal thing in a wedding ceremony. And then horses are cared for by a groom.
Yeah, I did think when you said think about those words, the first one I thought of was groom.
Groom. So there's two. So that's both of them. So the groom and the husband are both words that are used.
So the man gets horsey words associated to him.
Well, the female horses are called mares, aren't they?
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. So a groom is suited and booted with his top hats and tails for actual dressage. And then they mimic that when they... Obviously, they do the same when they have their wedding ceremony, don't they? They wear
They're all dressed as if they're...
And booted, as if they're going to go and do the dressage.
Yeah.
So, the headgear goes on the mare's head. What does the headgear do to a female horse? It controls the direction.
Well, yeah, because you have a bit, the headdress, and then you have a bit in your mouth.
So this basically, it controls the direction. So then this is called a bridle, which then became bridal wear. And what did the women call their dresses and everything? It's bridal wear, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's that same thing there. And then it continues. So the bride has their headdress, don't they? And it's fitted with a comb. Now that comb is associated with brushing out the horse's tail.
Oh.
When they brush out the tail. And that's where the word ponytail comes from, and having a ponytail. And I think even the word fringe and bangs is connected to
Comes
horse
from
as well.
horses.
It's from horse languages, yeah, because you have a fringe, don't you? When they have their fringe done. So even like the female word for fringe and stuff. So then you get things like, so the mare, which is the female horse, if she fails to be controlled, they become a nightmare, as the groom has failed to keep a tight rein when he saddled her.
I've been called nightmare a fair few times.
So, but again, isn't it? And it's that, it's that thing though, isn't it? So basically the groom has failed to keep a tight thing on her when he saddled her.
Yeah, he hasn't, when he saddled her.
He hasn't got that control over her. And think about like breeding stock. So if you've got good cattle, you say you've got good stock, bad stock. Now that happens in marriages. If you marry into good stock, it's all horse language again. So you marry into good stock, the chances are your children will have a better education.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be a better this, a better that sort of thing. So it's basically a business term when you say I'm married into good stock. It's actually business talk, isn't it? And then the other thing, horseshoes as well.
Yeah, I did think of that. You always get given horseshoes for good luck.
Given horseshoes for good luck, but they also put horseshoes on the cake, on wedding cakes, and they also put horseshoes with bells, don't they? And that's very horsey. Well, I just think it's horsey, isn't it? Bells, didn't they sort of use?
I don't know.
And then the other thing that really struck me was when back in the day when you had a horse and cart, and if it arrived at its final destination and it was empty, it's called a miscarriage.
Whoa.
Which is the term obviously they use for females who lose their babies.
When you lose a baby.
So it's not just in the wedding. This whole horse thing, basically.
So are we seen then as being livestock?
Yes.
That's what it alludes to, that we're all just clopping around being actual livestock.
Yeah.
And also that the woman is bridled and controlled by her husband.
Yeah, by the male, because you have the, what else do they say? The stud and the sire they use, don't they, for horse stuff. And then, of course, men are known as studs, and then siring is a father.
Yes.
So good stock, sire. Good stock,
and
if you
you're
like.
a bit of a stud.
And you're a bit of a stud, but then
You're
stud
gonna get out
is horse terms, isn't it?
So your seeds.
And also it does come into, so children are reared and some are considered to be brought up in a stable environment.
Oh my God.
So, you know, that's another way.
Again, just looking at the language and the terms that we use around bringing up our children.
And you say to your children, you know, you need to stop horsing around.
Yeah. When
they're doing that. And you can be turned down for the night when you go to sleep, and that's horse terminology. And there's the saying where children shy away like a horse moves away from noise. It's a bit of an old saying, but it's something that they say. And then you look at the horsey words that they use around sex. So you've got young filly.
I did think hung like a horse. I must admit
That's
that
a good one. I didn't think of that one.
That was the first one that came in my
hung
mind.
like a horse.
Hung like a horse.
Getting a leg up.
Yeah.
Leg over.
Leg over, which is how. Yeah.
Good in the saddle.
Yeah.
So all of that is all cattle horsey words. And then so the word desire basically derives from desiring.
Sire.
To desire.
So desire is wanting someone.
Desiring
something.
a male. Yeah, so desire, if I desire something, but it stems from desiring a mare, a female horse.
I want to sire something with you.
Yeah. So that's
How
horsey
romantic.
again. But it's so
I'd
horsey.
like to sire something with you. I'd like to get you in the saddle.
It's just gross, isn't it? And then think about just normal words, how we describe it as horses. So, what have we got? Think of some of those. So we've got a dark horse, a workhorse, beating a dead horse.
Yes.
Looking a gift horse
In the mouth.
Jump on the bandwagon to get on your high horse. I heard it from the horse's mouth. Mm-hmm. And then the interesting thing is when you look into it, these horse terms are endemic in lots of different languages. It's not just the British language.
I remember when I was looking at horses in a different thing, you know, in a more of a sort of esoteric way or whatever, or looking at the importance of horses to us. It was actually, I was doing some shamanic stuff on horse.
On a horse.
Yeah. But they were saying that it was our first form of transport. Before we got this relationship with the horses, because before that, if you wanted to talk to someone in the next village, you had to walk. And then we sort of tamed the horses, and suddenly everyone was moving around and able to plough the land and have things pulled and carry stuff. And that's why the relationship between man and horse has been so important in our evolution. So I guess from that you've then got a lot of stuff that, but also there's the element of us being treated as if, or talked about
As if we're
as
cattle.
if we're
Well, I suppose,
cattle.
like, if you think about it, when you're a sole trader, again, how it goes back into commerce and stuff. So if you're a sole trader, you're a single person in a boat, aren't you? But once you're a partnership, which is what a marriage is,
You're in
it's
a
the
ship.
joinder of, no, it's the joinder of two in a single boat.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, you become a company is when you're on board a boat and you're a collective.
There's loads of you.
And there's a big collective. So that's interesting. So you can have a sole trader. So they've got me and, say, my husband as two sole traders, but then you get married and then you've also got a partnership trader. So it's another, like, equity or another source of
Income. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's crazy stuff. And then just the word marriage sounds like marriage, doesn't it? Which is the female. So obviously the mare for marriage is the relation to the female horse. And then the suffix age, age, is a social standing or relationship. So yeah, marriage. It's another one of it's another homophobe where
it's the female horse.
Yeah, it sounds the same, spelt differently, and has a different meaning. Yeah, it's used in trickery. To so that's what marriage really is to do with the female basically, and her social standing or relationship. So very much marriage obviously is all very much about the male as well.
Yeah, and ownership. I mean, it's only been recently that women have had enough rights to, women were passed on from their husband to their husband. That was from their father to their husband. And, you didn't have, I know I keep going on about burning witches today, but it's another thing that I've looked into a lot. And a lot of the witches that were burnt were women that owned land. And they didn't want any women to own land. So they'd be, oh, she's a witch, let's burn her and have her land. We've not been able to have property. And it's only been recently, in the last 100 years, that you can divorce your husband and keep your children. Right up until very recently, if you had to divorce your husband kept the children.
Well, interestingly, in the Channel Islands, because I have my eldest son in the Channel Islands, if you're not married to your partner and you leave the partner, the father has automatic rights to the child.
Wow. So that's still going on then, effectively?
Yeah, I mean, well, he's quite old now, so I don't know if that's the case now, but it certainly wasn't going on in the UK at that time, but it was in the Channel Islands, yeah. He wasn't interested in keeping my son, so that was handy. If he had been, yeah, and of course I wasn't born in the Channel Islands, he was.
Yeah, he would.
So my son was, and the father was. So they'd have had that jurisdiction as well of saying, yeah.
So if he'd have wanted him, you would have had a real trouble on your hands.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we're pretty worded out.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think the main thing really is to understand that, these language, the language, if we understand it completely, signals to us how we've been sort of chatteled and how we are also sort of manipulated. As you say, once you're married, you're another way of getting revenue. And
having children.
And having children. They want you to have children because that's going to bring in another bond with the birth certificate and more revenue. And basically, the more we understand, the more we know about what we're saying, what we're spelling, what we're putting out into the world, the more control we can have over how we want it to be.
And it's interesting stuff, isn't it? It's interesting
I
to
find
learn
it really interesting
about words.
Yeah.
And, because we just speak, don't we, freely all the time without much understanding of
yeah, absolutely. I just waffle it off.
What the deeper meaning is.
Yeah.
And it does make you stop and think a bit. And it is interesting to look through. I mean, the other thing I'd advise people to get as well, which we can probably put on as a PDF, is the Black Laws Dictionary 4th edition.
Yeah.
That's really good. So that looks at all the legalese terms.
Yeah.
And how they use trickery. So they use legalese and English. And the legalese version of the English version is a trap, basically. And it means different things. So the classic one with that is you must means you may. So, you must in English means we think we must, but in legalese it actually means you may.
Which gives you a choice.
Yeah, which means you have a choice. So I always think that's a good one to look through as well. It's fascinating to look at words and just see.
Okay, well, we'll find meanings. I want to say...
Yeah, it has to be the 4th...
PDF. What is it again?
That is right. You're saying EDF.
EDF, which is an energy company.
You don't like those.
No.
But it has to be 4th edition because I think it's up to like the 12th or 13th now. And obviously when they upgrade it, they change.
Okay.
To suit them. So the newer editions won't have the correct. They won't have the correct.
So they've changed it.
So they've changed it to suit them. So it's fourth edition is the one. It's very, very hard to get hold of in a physical copy, but I have got a PDF for it, so we can share that.
PDFs are great. We love PDFs, don't we? And next time we're going to look at how to speak to the police, because we think that's going to be really practical and helpful for people. So we'll be back next week with that one. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So, anything else you wanted to say, Tash?
No, that's it.
Are we worded out?
I'm totally worded out.
We're worded out, guys. So we hope you enjoyed today's little episode, and we'll see you next week for how to talk to the police.
Bye.
Bye.